Mix Shows. From the club to the radio. Sunday, October 3rd, live on YouTube. A live discussion featuring DJ Superfunk Regulator CeeLo, DJ Dirty Rico, Edward Get Down Crosby, G Sharp, DJ Iron, Mike Burke, Jeffrey C, DJ Lonnie C, Sir Charles Dixon, the QIC DJ Quicksilver, and Super DJ Greg Diggs, with moderator Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas. Also featuring DJ Flex and Big Brother Conan. Special thanks to these legendary DC radio stations. The history of DC Mix Shows, from the club to the radio. Produced by Greg Diggs and Grover Massenberg.
We have a huge legendary panel of people, and we want everyone to definitely check in on YouTube. And if you can see the link, share the link with all your friends. We want everyone to get involved so we can definitely talk about all the things that the panelists we have in common. We love music of all genres. We all kind of made a living because of the music, and it's kind of like the heartbeat and the foundation of our careers. Now, with the rich history of our careers, it's made it a significant impact on our lives and many individuals. In fact, we all should applaud each and everyone that's on this panel right now. So I want to give the legends a big round of applause, everyone that's on the panel right now. So I just definitely want to say thank you so much for having me on this panel. I am someone that has been in the music game for quite a minute. You got my DJ Super Scotty, who's on the 1 and 2. Hey Scotty, you can bring that music down just a little bit. It's representing the West Coast, but I'm originally from New York, and I grew up listening to Frankie Crocker and Ken Spiderweb and Mr. Magic and Red Alert, and those are the guys that kind of like made me feel that I wanted to be in radio. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the panelists, and they're going to talk about their passion, what inspired them to be on the radio, what inspired them to be DJs, what made them want to be in the club, because the panel is all about the history of DC Mix Shows from the club and, of course, to the radio. Now, we couldn't put this thing together without two very important people, the producers. And the first one I'm going to introduce, he's the man, he's holding down like the broadcast center at BET, you know what I mean? I want to introduce one of the co-producers of this whole program, and his name is Grover Massenberg. Grover, what's going on this evening, my brother? How you doing?
How you doing? Well, I'm not at BET, but yeah, my name.
No, I wanted. It felt like it was at BET.
Oh,
that's the feeling we have. Come on, bro, work with me.
Okay.
What's up, Grover? How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. And we want to welcome everybody back for the second part of our history series. You know, on DJs in the city. You know, we have a lot of things planned. And I would have to say, I grew up in this industry in DC. I've worked with a lot of bands, and I'm a union stagehand. I started out with Berg Music. But the mission here is to research and document the history of the DC music scene, and also the entertainment in DC. There's so much that we can do here. We want to also interview some of the bands, you know, like the funk bands before the Go-Go. I mean, like the Young Senators. I mean, how many of you guys remember all those funk bands from back in the day? You know, all those cats need to be recognized. So that's one of the things we want to do. But Greg and I, we had this conversation a few months ago, and we was talking about the classics closing. That's how this whole thing started.
Right.
And he wanted to deal with, I wanted it to be about the classics, but Greg said, look, let's deal with the DJs. And that's where we are. So thank you.
All right, that's Grover Massenberg. He's one of the co-producers. Now, there's a gentleman's name that he kept mentioning over and over again, and he's also the producer of this this big forum that we have today that we're on. We're in the Zoom room, but we're also streaming on YouTube, so make sure you share that YouTube link. And this man here is responsible for me, and I have to thank him and in front of everyone that if it wasn't for this man here, I wouldn't have been able to work at BET. And he's also the co-producer of this forum that we have going on. Mr. Greg Diggs, how are you doing, Greg? And please tell everyone what is the purpose of this panel.
I'm doing great, Lorenzo. And thank you for moderating, my brother. I really appreciate it. Well, the purpose of the panel is to document the history and the origins of DC mix shows and to spotlight the contributions of some of the DJs who made the transition from mixing in clubs to mixing on the radio. Now, one day I had a conversation with Charles Dixon, and he had a suggestion about doing a panel about DC mix shows. And I thought that was an excellent idea because I thought it would give the perfect opportunity for us to spotlight some mix show pioneers and also some of the DJs who are mixing on the radio today.
Right.
Now, I know this might be hard for some people to believe, but there was a time when there were no mix shows on the radio in Washington, D.C. Just think about that. No mix shows on the radio in Washington, D.C. And that's why I wanted to do this panel. That's why I thought it was so important for us to document our history tonight in Washington, D.C. Because I was born and raised in this city, and I love Washington, D.C. Yep. And it really bothers me sometimes when I hear people talk about music scenes, DJs, clubs, and mix shows. You always hear them talk about New York, maybe Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, LA, but you very rarely hear them talk about Washington, D.C. So tonight, we're going to talk about D.C., and we're also going to spotlight and pay tribute to the mix shows and the DC DJs who mix the music on the radio in Washington, D.C. And that's the purpose of this panel.
Wow.
Oh, and one more thing I do want to mention, the promo that we played earlier, the voiceover was done by Matt Anderson. And Matt was one of the, he was a host of the Mega Mix on KISS.
Right.
And it featured Iron CeeLo and Edward Get Down Crosby and myself. So Matt was a very important part of that history at KISS, the Mega Mix. Just want to thank him for doing that and also for voicing that promo for us. So that's basically it.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. We definitely want to get started with this panel because we have some legendary DJs and their personalities that are on this panel. And of course, my DJ from my digital radio station, 100 Hip Hop and R&B FM, which can be heard on iHeart. It can be heard on Odyssey, Alexa. In fact, if you have a Amazon Fire Stick, bam, all you gotta do is press the button, say it, 100 Hip Hop and R&B FM, bam, it pops on your TV. Got my DJ, super Scotty, the DJ. You got a little something for me, Scotty, as we get this thing started?
Yeah, man, we just gonna go straight into the major look.
Oh, okay. Drop it.
We just gonna go straight into it, man.
Okay, start it up. All right, we're gonna take it from the top as we introduce our panelists. There's 13 of them. I think one person is not here as of yet. But first up, he represents WKYS and WPGC, the Super Funk Regulator, CeeLo. Raise your hand in the air. Let me know you're in the building, CeeLo. Next up, we got DJ Dirty Rico, represent WPGC and WMMJ. And my brother, we go way back like 8 tracks, OL, WKYS. And of course, he's doing the real big in Baltimore right now. My big brother, Conan. Hey, Conan, we got to share with them that Public Enemy 12-inch. Welcome to the Terry Dome. That's how far back we go. Oh, some of our shout outs on that one. Yeah. And my man, he's got his own digital gospel radio station, Edward Get Down Crosby. He's in the building. Stand up, Edward. Let him know you're in here, no doubt. All right, Ed. Okay, now, my man, he's got some stories for you. I want him to drop the Wowie story and tell everyone who motivated him to get on the microphone and DJ at the same time. We got Mr. Water Dance, DJ Flex. They're shooting. Yeah! Flex is in the building. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, and also in the building, we got DJ Lonnie C representing WMMJ and HUR. Lonnie C, stand up.
What's up, family? How's everybody doing?
And I don't think my man's in the building as of yet, but I had the chance to work with him. We did the live broadcast at Republic Gardens, and also he was doing it up real big. DJ Iron, and he's on HUR right now. He'll be stepping in the building a little bit later on. And okay, Scotty, I feel you. That's how you feeling right now. Also, Mr. Mike Burke, representing DJ 100. Mike Burke, let him know you're in the building, my brother.
Yo, Mike Burke is in the building.
As we keep it moving. Yeah, we were talking to this guy before. We want to talk about his resume. It is legendary. He's heard all over the world right now. Of course, when he was in the DMV, he was on WPGC. Give it up for Sir Charles Dixon.
What's up?
What's up, sir? Sir. I gotta keep the sir in there. Also, me and my man, we go back. Yes, represent WPGC and WEVB. DJ What up, Jeffrey?
You got on. You safe. You knew. I'm the one that might have issues.
Without a doubt. And also, I gotta give it up. I'll just say if you can, please mute your microphones if you're not talking, if you're not speaking right now. Okay, can you do that for me? Also, my man, we go back 50.
The Oak Tree, nope. I started at the Penthouse.
Right.
I was Club first, you know what I mean? And before that, Flex was at Suland. I was at Oxon Hill High School. So, you know what I'm saying? We came out of high school. I'm at the strip joint. A brother got on the radio. Yo, come on. I was like, huh? Yeah. I want you to come play for a day. I said,
okay.
Play for a day where? He's like, on the radio. I was like, I ain't back. I went and I did the mix show on Flavor 1580.
Okay, so I guess Flex played a heavy influence in you doing that. So I guess Flex, I'll have to ask you that same question because you were able to definitely blaze a trail for a whole lot of people that came after you. But where did you hear your first mix show on DC radio?
Oh man, that's straight DJ. That's straight Conan. Conan actually put me on. Yes, Conan put me on KY. My first DJ gig was on KYS.
Right.
And Conan set that up. So that was my first time on radio.
Okay, so I guess now I gotta go to Conan. So we keep going back. So Conan, he's walking right now. So I did say you and I go back like 8 tracks, my brother. And for real. I mean, I grew up in New York City, and I remember listening to back in the day where you had to have the hip hop cassette. You know what I mean? I grew up right across the street from Rocksteady Park. I mean, I remember seeing Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, etc. Yeah, I might be dating myself and aging myself, but that's what I remember. And that's kind of like what motivated me. And around the same time, I think you were breaking in with hip hop as well. Am I correct when I say that, Conan?
Yeah, my first radio show was 85.
Okay.
So that was when it all started for me.
Okay, so now when you started, did you do a mix show? Did you have the freedom to play what you wanted to play on the radio?
Well, yeah, at the time when I was doing the Go-Go show, it was actually letting me program my own stuff. So people like Dangerous D and several other DJs, they let me pick up and just kind of give an opportunity to come on and do something different because it was AM, so we had to do something different.
Right.
FM was playing all the, stuff like New Edition and stuff that we couldn't compete with. So we was doing go-go and hip hop.
Right.
And Yeah, a lot of those DJs, and Flex was killing it. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened with Flex and I, besides that, is that Flex was in the middle of doing DJ Flex and the Prophylactic All-Stars. He was doing the water dance live. And I happened to walk into the Quonset. And, we just all had a connection because we were all in the industry together, or just in the music part together. So
right.
Yeah, it just took us from there, man, to the radio.
Right. But there has to be, and this is to anyone on the panel, I think what we want to tap into is, because there was a time when there was no mix shows on the radio, and then once that mix show popped on, it had to be something that you heard that engaged you to say, okay, I'm maybe DJing in the club right now, but if I get on the radio, my brand can just like blow up. So when I asked, when did you hear that first mix show, DC radio? Anyone on the panelists want to talk about that first time?
I would definitely like to bring up Frank Ski and Larry G. Because they were jamming on WDCU. So I don't even think we can have this conversation without mentioning how much they contributed. Because a lot of people, even though they were a college station, we may be talking about commercial radio stations, but they made a major impact in Washington, D.C. So we definitely got to shout out them.
Right. Now Frank Ski was on the radio in D.C., and then he worked his way to Baltimore, where he somewhat was responsible for creating that Baltimore club sound. Is that safe to say that he's kind of like one of the guys that started that with that Baltimore sound and took over and ran DC ran Baltimore with, oh my God, clubs like, what was it, Conan, Louis, and what was it, Hammer Jacks. Hammer Jacks and Louis. Okay, so there were some major clubs in DC, and people were talking about Flex basically being on the radio. So let's go back to those days, those adolescent days, or maybe not that far back, but a lot of the DCs have a great mic game. You know what I'm saying? I was able to take advantage of the fact there were some DJs that didn't really want to talk on the mic. You know what I mean? And that's when I was able to host, because I didn't want to carry no crates. I wanted to be in front. I wanted to be in the crowd. I wanted to be where the honeys were, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of this. But I could see there's a lot of DC DJs, and especially down here in Florida too, you have to have a mic game. Who influenced you, Flex, to basically add that mic game to DJing?
No question, it was DJ Cool. I think I was.
Wow.
I probably was like 17 years old.
Okay.
And I snuck into the East Side on a Thanksgiving night. I don't even know how I got in the club, but I got in there and I watched DJ Cool control this crowd with his mic game and his selection. And I was like, look at this guy right here. He's incredible. And I was like, yo, this is what I want to do. And then I came back and went into the booth. I kicked the door down in the booth and said, yo, my name is DJ Flex. I'm trying to get on. And he laughed at me and said, look at this guy right here. Y'all bad. And then he told me come back in a couple of weeks, because it was in the East Side that time. In 1 week, it was on a Tuesday. It was Cool, and then it was Frank Ski the second week. And so what happened is that Cool told me come back on his night. Okay. And I did. I came back, and that's kind of how it got going. And I ended up getting a gig at the club and everything else. And I ain't gonna tell y'all, the first night I played at the club, I bombed bad. Wow. I bombed bad. But it was all right, man. Things worked out. Things seemed to work out all right.
Yeah, 25 years later, right, my brother? Is that how long it's been? 25 years?
Probably longer than that.
That's 25 years on the radio. Okay.
It's skin 35. I'm not watching no time.
All right. Hey, Super Funk Regulator CeeLo, how you doing, my brother? He's one of our panelists. He's been in the DC market for a long time, holding it down, doing big things. And the thing about it is, for me, I think every panelist, and I think I've had the pleasure of working or doing something with each and every one of you. And that means a lot to me, you know. So, and CeeLo, we go back, we'll talk about that a little bit later about where we did some work together. But CeeLo, share your story about the first time you heard a mix show, or what motivated you to go from the club to the radio.
The first mix show I heard was probably Frankie and Larry G Break Us the Light on Saturday night at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first time I heard Roxanne and Larry's Dance and all these records that I got to take from New York because my cousin was from New York, but we didn't have that on the radio here. So it was like amazing to me to hear them playing that music. And I pretty much went from the club scene. I was rocking go-go's and in Chicago's and all kind of clubs I wasn't even supposed to be in. I was 17. And Iron came up to me in the opera one night and asked me if I wanted to DJ on the radio. And I was like, what kind of question is that? Of course I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from there and, you know, did my radio thing.
Now, that kind of brings me to another question for all of the panelists that DJ'd in the club and then went to the radio. Were there any, let's see, were there any roadblocks? Were there any songs or things, or any different ways that you had to play differently when you were playing in the club? Y'all know I know the answer to this, but I want y'all to elaborate on it, about the differences where you may have had to play at the club compared to the radio. CeeLo, you want to take that one?
Yeah, when I first started, it was pretty much, I brought the club to the radio because I was doing a all hip hop show. Mm-hmm. So the majority of my night was hip hop anyway. So the only difference I would say is I had to take out a lot of the curse words. We were on reel to reel back then. Right. And I had to take out the curse words because a lot of records didn't have clean versions back then. Mm-hmm. And I would say that would be the only difference. When I came from the club and went to radio, I was playing all the stuff I was playing in the club anyway. So, it wasn't really too much of a roadblock or anything at that point.
Would it be safe to say that you had the freedom to play the records that you wanted to play?
We came in at a unique time. Mm-hmm. Aaron brought me in at a unique time because hip hop was just blowing up.
Right.
And Greg Diggs and Barbara Prieto, they wanted a hip hop show. So I came in and just did, again, playing Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, Flo Joe, Fat Joe. We just came in playing the stuff that was popping in the club. Because I was DJing a lot in the Howard crowd. So that was a whole different atmosphere than DJing in a regular DC club. I was DJing for a lot of Howard parties. So I could play all those records, whereas I go to a cabaret or something, I couldn't play these records. Mm-hmm. So it was just automatic. Like it was just like a come from the club and go to the radio and play these same records. So it was just a smooth transition.
Right. So if you're just checking in, you are listening and viewing the History of DC Mix Shows from the club to the radio. I am your moderator, Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas, representing 100 Hip Hop and R&B FM. And we have a legendary panel of DJs and their personalities that are on this panel. Got my DJ Super Scotty, who's holding down on the 1 and 2. And I kind of want to tap into the difference between when I mentioned about the songs. And maybe I'll just put the question like this. There was a time where we all remember deregulation, right? We all remember what that was, where, a corporation can come in and they can own more than one radio station in one particular market, right? And then you had, that had a huge impact on radio. And then you had the part where they got rid of the diaries, right? So once they got rid of the diaries, then now you have panels. So people walk around with these different panels. And corporations, consultants, vice presidents of programming all had to try to adapt to this, let's say, these blue panels. But in that, and not necessarily knowing what they need to do, they started to put playlists up, right? I worked down here in Miami, and I actually worked with a DJ who we all know pretty well, and he had the freedom to be able to play whatever it was that he wanted to play on the radio. And because of that, he was able to establish those relationships with, let's say, those particular artists. Now, he probably would have blown up regardless of whether or not he had that freedom, but it aided him. And I'm referring to DJ Khaled. Now, DJ Khaled and I worked together in Miami doing the drive at 5. Now, this is to the entire panel. Are there any situations where you've run into complications with certain songs that you may have wanted to play on the radio, but all of a sudden you had I think I'll direct this to Mr. Quicksilver, where there's situations where you did not have the freedom to play what you wanted to play on the radio, and it was kind of detrimental to being able to execute what you wanted to do on the radio?
And we all know the situation and the answer to that. But I know from my personal experience, when I first came into radio, and I started radio at 95, I always thought, and I'm going to tag off what CeeLo said, my mentality was I came from the club scene. I started the club scene in DC in 90. I kind of built my reputation up from that. And when I finally got a chance to be on the radio, and when I first started, I was just part-time, late nights, mixed weekends. I wasn't every day. That came a few years later. But I thought the whole goal, like CeeLo said, was play the club. Play like you're in the club. You're on the radio. If it works in the club, that's what people want to hear. Well, Steve Hegwood said, nope. That ain't happening. Not on every record.
Right.
So it was a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everyone on this panel has an ear to the streets. They knew what people wanted to hear, and they all fought that adversity. And there was a lot of songs that we thought were necessary that, it was a club banger. It was a 1 o'clock in the morning drop that would get everyone going crazy. But for some reason, the club or the radio didn't feel that was necessary for programming at that particular time. It was in it. You know that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else want to elaborate a little bit on that? And Charles, I'm definitely coming to you because you have the promotions background as well. So I definitely want you. If you want to answer that now, Charles, you can.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky when I came to PGC, the DJ at 87. I came from the Dome, and it's so funny. I actually worked as an intern at the radio station in the research department, doing call-out research. And I asked the head of promotions, Lisa Baden, I told her, I said, when you guys finally get a music director, I want to DJ on the radio. She said, well, there's a music director coming down from Connecticut, and I'll have him check you out at the club. So one day I'm DJing at the Dome, and I see this guy, sitting in front of me, snipping on a drink, watching me DJ. It's kind of weird at first, but at the end, he was like, yo, I'm Albie D. I like what you're doing here. Lisa told me about you. Can you do what you're doing in the club on the radio? And I was like, hell yeah. So July 28th, 1987, brought me to the station. I had to plug into the newsroom with doing a mobile gig because they weren't set up to do it. And 5 hours live, got to play, and I could play whatever I wanted. I was a pool director at OMAP, and I also was the chart editor. So I did the charts for all 75 DJs. So every genre, I picked the top 5 songs of those genres, put it in a mix, and that's how I blew the Dome up. And then I did the same thing on PGC. So I would start hip-hop, R&B, DC go-go, house music, techno, Euro disco at the time. So I was 5 hours live playing whatever I wanted to play. And I think that caused a problem for DJs after me because the record labels would call the station like, yo, thanks for breaking my record. And they'd be like, huh? What record? That happened so much that they were like, Charles, you got to do a list of all the records you play. I was like, for 5 hours every week? I was like, I'm not doing that. So I didn't do it. But I think that caused a problem later on because, MDs, PDs, they want to get, some credit for what was playing, or they wanted to be aware of what you were playing, because I was just playing stuff out the box, test pressings, whatever was hot in the clubs. I'd go around to the clubs, see who was playing what, and then I would, from my pool charts, I would just add records every week, mostly a lot of new stuff, and that was the thing. So I didn't have that issue, and I left in 90 to come to New York to work at Tommy Boy, and that gave me a good promo, like Greg was saying. Now I got to promote records to DJs and talk to them like a DJ. That's how I actually got the job at Tommy Boy, from being able to talk to DJs, being a DJ myself. So I didn't have any playlist issues. Even when I got to BLS, I could pretty much play what I want.
Now that was the Dome. That was on M Street, right? Am I right when I say that? That was downtown. That had the glass windows and you could see the DJ the live. And was that one of the first live broadcasts?
Well, we did one live broadcast there.
Okay.
But I don't think that was one of the first. I think Kiss was doing. I think they were the first to do it.
Okay. Now, G Sharp, you were doing that broadcast as well. Am I safe? Is it safe to say that?
I did a couple, but I think Jeffrey C. actually was one of the first on PGC to do the live broadcasts.
Okay.
Then followed by me, then CeeLo started to do them as well.
Okay.
But to kind of touch on what you're saying as far as how we were being pretty much free to do whatever we wanted, and then when things changed, I kind of caught the transition of that because I joined PGC in '91, and right at that time, the floodgates were wide open. LBD was kind of letting us do what we were doing. But as the station was growing, the not necessarily the program director, but the consultant was starting to guide what we were doing, little by little. So it wasn't necessarily a playlist; it was more of a suggestion.
Was that a Jerry Clifton?
You got it. It was Jerry. Yeah. He was always there, but as the station grew, he got more involved in what the mix shows were doing.
Right.
Because the mix show was a real vehicle to connect us to the street. And our numbers were increasing. So they saw value in what we were doing, so they wanted to control it.
Okay.
And little by little, that's when it wasn't necessarily a playlist when I was there, but it was play this, but don't play that. Play this again, but don't ever play that.
Wow.
And that's how it kind of progressed. Now, I can't really speak too much on how it was after I left in '96. But I can definitely tell you there was a huge transition where the mix shows were really wide open, at least on the FM side, during the primetime hours, and then it kind of narrowed down.
Okay, can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
All right, because this is like perfect because of G Sharp. G Sharp, what was the store that you was DJing out of? In Georgia?
Sam Goody. No, it was Sam
Tower
Goody.
Records. Tower Records.
No, it was Sam Goody.
Sam Goody.
No, it was Sam Goody.
On M Street, yes.
Georgetown, right?
Yes.
Right. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
So when you talk about you're able to do whatever you want to do, let me tell you, G Sharp changed my life.
Wow.
G Sharp changed my life because after everything we did, we recorded the water dance at the Quonset, and then I had the test presses. And I took the test presses of the water dance straight to Sam Goody while he was on the radio. And he didn't even question it.
No.
And I said, yo, here's the test press. And he put it right on the air, and then the streets went nuts after that. So that's the power of being able to do what you do. You know what I'm saying? Because right then, he had control to be able to do whatever he wanted to do, and he had to ask nobody. He just took the test press and didn't even listen to it.
No, I knew. I was at the Quonset. I was at the East Side when you was doing that. I went down to Richmond with you when you did that, so I already knew.
Hey, let me jump in here. Before all of that, in 1976, when I got to Howard.
Wait, say that year again?
I said in 1976.
Okay, all right. I just want to write that down.
Many of you weren't even born or even in elementary school for that matter. When I first got to Howard, there were DJs. There were guys who DJed the parties on campus. Berg music was very influential in my process of thinking of how mixes went about. They had a unique style. When I said Berg music, I'm talking about I think his name was David Fingers, Ray Valentine, and of course the late Tommy Hall.
Well, let me jump in for a second. Tommy wasn't part of it. It was Ray Valentine, DC Valentine, and Sonny Smith. They were the owners, and I was one of the people who was working there.
And you were one, yeah. I remember you, Masterberg. But the style of mixing that had an impact on me, they would ride the mix. You would hear the first song, and then the second song would come in. You're dancing on the beat. I was like, wow, that's different. Because I come from South Florida where I had only heard disco mixed that way and not R&B and dance music. That was between 76 and 79. And then when Brute Bailey was hired at DJ 100, we had gone to a club out in Camp Springs called the Classics. And there was a guy by the name of Super DJ Greg Diggs on the 1 and 2. I went back to the radio station. This had to be like 1984, maybe. 84, 85. I went back to the radio station. I said, bro, man, there's a guy named Greg Diggs who is probably the best club DJ I have heard to date. Maybe we should give him a shot at mixing on the air, because I don't think anybody was mixing at that time. I don't think PGC was mixing or KYS was mixing. And Brute stepped up. He was always, one to be different. As a matter of fact, because of his military background, he always referred to WKYS as the enemy, and WPGC stood for White Punks Gone Crazy. But Brute took the lead during the mid to late 80s, and he put Greg Diggs on the air, along with a couple of other DJs. I believe it was Greg Diggs and Kenny Hollywood Hart at the time, but they had become regulars. Yeah, they had become regulars on DJ 100, The Sound of the City, 5 strong songs in a row. And that kind of turned the tide. That's when you guys came in and came on the scene, and it was like, that's the ticket, So I mean, for me, that's the impression that I got. And I also want to mention, I was a radio guy going to clubs. There was one guy who DJ'd at the Room. This guy could drop the needle on the actual album or on the actual test press or record, and pick it up and scratch it, and boom, it would be right on point. His name was Maniac McCloud.
Wow. And the crowd goes, wow.
The legendary Maniac.
Greg Diggs can attest to the lead that Brute Bailey took in the early mid 1980s on moving the club sound of mixing onto DC radio airwaves.
Well, I definitely want to talk about that, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have Mike on this panel, because there was a time when there was this major radio war between DJ 100 and KYS, and that's when I first got to KYS. But before that, Mike was the person that got me on the air at DJ 100. But once I got to KISS, it was a completely different type of situation, because now, like he said, we were the enemy. But it was a friendly type of competition. But I do remember one day Mike Burke called me, and he did this Donnie Simpson imitation.
Mike, you got to do it. You got to do it now.
He sounded exactly like Donnie. Hey, Mike, go ahead and do it, brother.
Come on, Mike.
Right. Hey, guy, how you doing? Hey, welcome back to more Video Soul. This is Donnie Simpson. Oh, God. I was talking with my wife, Pam, the other day, and our son walks in and plays the saxophone. I say, who do you think you are? Kenny G? That's my Donnie Simpson.
Rico, you work with Donnie Simpson doing the mix show weekly now. How would you gauge that impersonation, Dirty Rico?
I'm gonna give it a D minus, bro.
Because what was so funny about that to me is, like, I actually thought it was Donnie when he called me. It really, he just sounded like that, because I work with Donnie. And so I'm thinking, this is him calling me. And it was Mike Burke.
Right. So what would y'all say? Go ahead, Mike. You want to say something?
I would say, there was also a time period on BJ's morning thing when we were doing the Hot 100 concept. I had a character on in the morning. Donnie was not pleased because we poked fun at him name dropping and supposedly being, really tied to the community. And we exploited that, but he was not happy with it. And, so we were asked to cease and desist with the invitation of Donnie Simpson.
Interesting. Now, when we talk about the history of DC mix shows and going from the club to the radio, that is what the theme for this panel is. I think you have to look at each and every era. And I guess, Greg, you were DJing in the 80s, and a lot of the DJs here were there in the 90s, and then you had the 2000s and going on to today. Anyone in the panel can answer this, especially those that have not had an opportunity to speak as of yet. We have Edward Get Down Crosby, who is now tuned in. I think Iron is on his way. Jeffrey, we want to hear a little bit more from you, so maybe you can pose. CeeLo, you can definitely chime in as well. Which era, I guess it may be the era that you represented, but musically, and it doesn't necessarily have to be live broadcast, it could just be the mix show. And Greg, I guess you could stand up for the 80s, but which era was better? Anyone on the panel?
90s.
That's subjective.
I would say it's 90s from a radio standpoint, because if you looked at whether it was an urban playlist, a crossover playlist, or a pop playlist, if you looked at a top 20 playlist from any format, 80 to 90% of those songs was either hip hop or R&B. So as far as the mix show concept was, we were winning because we were playing all of the hottest stuff that was out there. It's a little fragmented now, and I would say going back a little earlier, I mean, I wasn't in the mix show game in the 80s, but as a radio listener, music was definitely a lot more segregated. There wasn't a lot of crossover between urban and R&B, and hip hop was hardly even heard on really urban radio in the 80s. But if you look at the 90s, we got the opportunity to play all of the good R&B and hip hop because that was what we were allowed to play from as mix show DJs. And that was happening in clubs, it was happening in every format.
Greg, you want to stand up for the 80s? And Lonnie C, I'm sorry, man. I'm going to come to you, Lonnie. It says
it's all good.
Oh, my bad, brother. My bad.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Good. Charles, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was saying I represent the 80s too. Like I started in 87, and like I said, the format was wide open. We played hip hop, R&B. We played the whole genre because I had 5 hours live. So, and my shift was 7 to midnight. That's an entire Arbitron rated period, not like a fragment, hour, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever. So I had to play everything because I'd run out of music to play if I didn't. So for me, the late 80s into the 90s was great because, I mean, house music. I was playing like every house record out of Chicago. That's how I got the job at Trax. I was playing hip hop. I was playing go-go. That's how I was telling LBD, put DJ Cool on the radio, because we needed that representation because no one's really giving him a real show. That's when we developed Club 95. Club 95 was everything as well. Then we did the merge with OMAP and Tables of Distinction with Club 95. We put 30 DJs on the radio playing everything. So that was a great time for me because we totally represent the entire music spectrum.
Jeffrey C.
Yeah, well, I naturally 80s. I mean, first time this thing blew up in my face was April 1st, 1983 on WEBB AM.
Stand up.
I like to say that I'm probably unique from everyone in this panel because I was not playing at a club at the time, getting into radio. I was a mobile DJ. And the mobile DJ is not what got me into the radio. It was my edit remixes. I used to cut tape, do pause button mixes.
He said pause button.
And nobody in Baltimore or DC was doing it. Period. Nobody. Except me and Doug Lazy. We were the only 2 people.
That's what got both of y'all on PGC.
Yes.
Marvin's Bedroom, President Principal. Yep.
Edward Get Down Crosby, talk to me, my brother. Stand up for your era.
Hey, God bless you, brothers. Can y'all hear me out there?
Sir.
All right, sorry, I apologize for being late. I had to get some reliable internet.
It's all good.
Blessings to all of my brothers out in DC. Thanks for having me a part of this panel. I'm just here to assist Greg Diggs. But anyway, I'm gonna let y'all know that my DJ career started in about 81 with the DJing at the local bars and lounges. And I didn't get into major radio until about 1985, coming out of Chicago. Of course, y'all know we had the famous Hot Mix 5 team. that was gracing the airways back in the 80s. And I like the 90s. The thing that pulls me more for the 80s is because the relationships that the DJ had with the program department and the club and the record store. You know what I'm saying? Because all you guys are awesome talent, and you had influence in each industry that you represented. You had influence, but the reason why I had to stand on the 80s is because you don't have the relationships that we had, Sir Charles, back in the 80s, and with our program department, along with the record stores. That can never be duplicated again, because right now everything is all research based. Back then, they had to consult with us, mobile DJs / club DJs, because our ear was in the street and we can feel the heartbeat of the dance flow. So, the radio stations, the program directors had to come to the mobile and club DJs so that they can get a feel on what they should be playing, because sometimes research, it miss a little bit, and you have to go on the gut feeling what's really working. You can have something really charting high, but it's not selling in the record store. So it may be something that one of us playing on this panel, or myself, in the club, that's selling and that's keeping the dance floor packed. And so, that was our research right there. I love Michael Jackson, but that that ain't moving. That one, put this on and watch the crowd move. And it's selling. So I would say, for me, the 80s, because of the personal relationships I had with the music directors / program directors.
Okay. Hey, CeeLo.
Yo.
Great. Okay. What era you represent, man? I mean, I think I already know, but let the people know. Let them know what it is.
I represent the 90s, but I would have to say the 80s too. Because the 80s, the music that was coming out then, you had Eddie Grant, Walking on Sunshine, I'll Do Anything for You, Delroy Morgan. These records were played in the mix show, and it just did something to me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it was the music at that time. So, I mean, the 90s were beautiful. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But the music in the 80s, to me, was something I really made me want to be a DJ.
Right.
That's an interesting point.
Lonnie C.
That's an interesting point, CeeLo. You're my situation back then was kind of unique, because I represent the 90s, but the 80s music was good. Also, in the clubs, when I first started in the clubs, the station wanted you to play old school music, but I had to be creative and create some of the 90s music and with that. And what I was doing basically was taking vocals from a 90s track and putting it on an old school track to keep the dance floor packed. Because, of course, the clubs didn't want to hear old school all day, but the station wanted me to play, the hits, if you will. So again, I had to be creative. And one of the key components that made me think about that was Maniac McCloud. That brother, and also the late great Sam Burns, where he could take two records and make it sound like one. That's where I got the concept from, but I wanted to be different. So it was different because I was playing old school music with some of the 90s as well to be creative, and it worked. In fact, it worked so well, my ratings were #1 for a long period of time.
Okay, if you're just checking in, we are talking about the history of DC mix shows from the club to the radio. I'm your moderator, Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas. Greg Diggs, Grover Massenberg are your co-producers, and we're putting this thing on. We'll actually be on until 9 o'clock, so thank you for tuning in, and please share the link so we can get more people involved with the conversation. And I just want to kind of talk about the radio wars. I don't even think anyone that is on the radio today, I don't even think they know what a radio war is, because I can actually talk about the radio war that I experienced in Baltimore, and people lost jobs because of that particular war. And some of you DJs on this panel actually DJ'd with me on that particular station, and Conan is still standing strong after that radio war. That was the war between WERQ and the now distinct V103.
Oh, yes.
How many people remember that war? Just raise your hand.
I remember that. I was in
yeah. So that was, and that was a war. Also, the PGC and WKYS war in the I would say in the mid 90s to the late 90s, Flex and CeeLo and DJ Rico. Well, I know CeeLo, you went back and forth. I think you were at KYS for some period of time because you and I did the live broadcast at Classics together, right? Am I right when I say that, CeeLo?
You're correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
So you were kind of back and forth, but because we all know him, we all family, we all love each other. But at that point in time, we were so young. I mean, it was about survival. Because, during that time, what are just some of your memories? And we'll go ahead and bring this one who hasn't had a chance really to speak that much as of yet. We'll go ahead. Jeffrey, you did speak a little bit, but go ahead and talk about your memories, since I did mention some of the Baltimore and DC stuff, of some of the radio wars that happened while you were on the radio.
Oh, yeah. I remember some of the radio wars. That's really why I was brought on to some of the radio stations that it was at, because the edit mixes that I talked about earlier gave the station an advantage in that the station had the only copy or the only version of a song. I remember during the war, I did a mix on Brandy featuring Heavy D.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of the song. Oh, it was a remake of the Michael Jackson song.
Right.
Anyway, I created the mix. 92Q had it on regular rotation. I heard that V103 was angry at Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers hadn't given them a copy of this special version.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember getting a call from Greg Lee at the time from Warner Brothers, and he said, "Hey, what is this? What is this mix you guys are playing on 92Q? What version is this? We didn't give this to you." Well, no, because I put it together, and so we cleared that up. But those are the things. Those are the kinds of wars we used to do. I used to make unique songs or make unique arrangements of songs that were in regular rotation that were already popular, and that's how people gravitated. Well, one of the things that made people gravitate toward our station, because if they wanted to hear that mix, they had to tune into the station. They couldn't hear it anywhere else.
Right.
Well, Lorenzo, I wanted to mention something that pertaining to Charles and I've had this discussion before, because there was one particular mix that actually was the catalyst for the traffic jam to be born on WKYS. And that was a mix that I heard. I was driving in my car coming home one day, and I heard PGC play a mix, Barbara's Bedroom, mixed with Janet Jackson's The Pleasure Principle.
Oh, yeah.
And that, to me, was the game-changing mix in Washington, D.C. That was in 1987.
That was you and Doug.
So when I heard that...
Jeffrey, that was you and Doug Lazy, right?
No, Doug did that.
Was Bedroom, but it was a mix. The one he's talking about with Pleasure Principle and Barbara's Bedroom.
Yeah, Doug and I did Just Got Paid, Johnny Kemp,
right. I remember
Salt and Pepper, Shake That Thing. Actually, I got the masters right there. And one more song, Off on Your Own Girl, I'll Be Sure. Those are the three we did together.
Okay, because I know Doug did Barbara's Bedroom. So, yes. Greg, you may have heard the record in a mix with him mixing from one remix to the next remix, because
I don't know what it was, but all I know is that when I heard that mix on PGC in my car, the following day I went into Donnie's office and had this conversation, because I was telling him this new station, PGC, they're playing all these club songs, and now they're actually playing mixes on air. So Donnie and I had this long conversation, and that was the reason that I was able to get the traffic jam on the air because of that mix. And that to me was the very beginning battle for the radio war between PGC and WKOS, that Barber's Bedroom Pleasure Principle mix.
But I can tell you real quick. Before that, I want to interject real quick.
What?
You ready? Okay.
What?
I'm gonna tell you a radio award a lot of people aren't familiar with that we had to deal with because PGC, you know, we were sprinkling in a lot of hip hop records when none of the other stations played any hip hop. I'll never forget, Def Jam had LL Cool J come to the radio station and we interviewed him right on his first album with My Radio, I think it was. So I met him in the parking lot, came to the station, we did an interview. After that, all hell broke loose. The GM of KISS put out, I don't know how he did it, but he called the labels, and it was like, you send any more music to that crossover station playing black music before we get it, we're going to shut y'all down. So PGC's music line through the labels was cut off. So me and Albie D, we had to cart up records from the record pool. Now 12-inch Dance Records was actually sponsoring my mix show, so imports like Soul to Soul, Keep on Moving, Lisa Stansfield, Been Around the World. Actually, I got that from Jazz Summers for my show in London. But Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Yep.
Will DePower, we were carting up imports. So then they got mad again. It's like, how is PGC getting these records? We got them from OMAP Record Pool. So that was really crazy that they tried to shut us down like that. And it was bad. We were in there carting up records from vinyl. Because we had no labels would send us anything. So it gave us an advantage because now we can play stuff that no one else is playing. That's why we started playing a lot of go-go, because we couldn't get records from the labels. Can you imagine? So
yeah.
We'll start. And then like Jeffrey C's mix, Doug Lazy got put on, you know, from Barber's Bedroom. And then my Saturday show in August, the Birch, remember Birch,
oh yeah,
Monthly Trend Report. Okay, on the Birch of August to September, I had a 10 share, 12 plus, 18 to 34. I had an 18 share, and then from that, Jerry Clifton wanted to start a show on Friday. So that's when Doug and Albie moved to Friday, and then Michelle Wright came for me on Saturday, and we killed it. So
okay.
Radio Wars is on.
Yeah, y'all are kind of bringing it up from the and these battles, because I worked as a music director and assistant program director. So those behind the scene wars are things that a lot of people aren't aware of.
Skip Finley. I think Skip Finley was the one. He made that call.
Wow, I haven't heard it in a long time. But there were things that were said and done. I mean, there were things said on the air about other radio stations. And I mean, I know PGC, KYS, we went back and forth. I wish Antonio, the Cuban cigar smoker, or Craig Black was on.
They wouldn't understand why all of us was cool and why y'all was friends with us. talking to us. Man, don't be shaking that dude's hand, man. Don't be talking to him and blah, blah, blah. Toward where it even came a time when some of the cats from KYS even egged the street beast.
Yeah.
Egged it up. Like, egged it up. like, yo, like, they egged all of us. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it was crazy times when all that stuff happened, when the radio wars became, shall I say, a little seeable to the folks.
Right.
You know, like we would, you know, come to a KYS broadcast and be at the party. KYS come to our broadcast, be at the party, and, you know, talk what happened and commence in the DJ booth. Oh, the competition is here. Use our broadcast for this.
Right.
Finally got microphone. You know, it was everything going, man. But I would say it really got funky at a few concerts. One particular, Beyonce at the MCI Center. Notice I didn't say Verizon Center.
Right.
And I didn't say, what is the name, Capital One Arena. You know, it was like, you know, we were lined up, had vehicles lined up, and, you know, the promotion side of KYS was beefing with the promotion side of PGC for parking spaces. It was crazy. You know, so it came from off of the music part when it came out, in, you know, to the public. But, you know, more or less, like I said, again, my brother CeeLo, like, man, don't y'all get into that. No, like, don't y'all, ain't no need for all that, because don't make me pick a side, y'all. My brother's over here, but my co-worker's over here. So, wait a minute, but y'all over here, my co-worker's over here. So, it's kind of like, you know, it came down to where we had to realize, you know, we getting checks from both, we working, everybody, you know, we got a little rah-rah still that was going on. But, you know, it never got to a physical sense. It was always the having a horn of, you know, the number one situation. And Lord have mercy, it was a little short guy, you know, that came from, he's a fan of the Buffalo Bills, down here. And, you know, he was like, you know, the man, remember, music is the stars. So,
oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
I've heard that.
But, I mean, play the hits.
Play the hits.
Hey, you know, but it was always a good thing to see that ha-ha brew in the street, because it went to letting the listeners see how much the radio stations did to try to stand out one above each other. It would just constantly build the competition up. And when it came down to it, man, it was always about the party and the people.
Right.
Party had a great time. The party at any point, if CeeLo was DJing, when you talk about DJs without microphones, it's DJs like CeeLo. It's DJs like G-Sharp. It's DJs like Super Scotty, who is now talking on the mic, who I really only knew Scotty had a production sound and voice, but now I'm talking more on the mic now on Twitch. DJs like Lonnie C. You know, so it's the thing that those guys, and it's a whole lot more that do DJ without using a microphone, that are beasts with the dance. Sir Charles, you get on my nerve, dog. Charles one night had me in a zone, and I sat there and listened to him for hours. And it's those DJs who actually do it without microphones. I love the simple fact that they do that, because I mean, that, like Flex said, I came from the school of learning from DJ Cool, because I was his runner for years in triples.
Right.
Running up and down steps with 16 to 22 crates. So when it come down to the DJs who get behind those controllers or the 1200 steel or whatever they get behind and play and crank out without talking on the microphone, I still got the ultimate love and respect for them. And now that they, you know, even brought it to the horizon, now when we on this Twitch thing doing the live and hearing them talk, it just shocks the bricks up out of it. You know what I'm saying? But I love the fact that we are able to show our skills with all the music that we have in our heart and in our ears and in our mind to play. And when it's soothing to me when I hear the DJs go into them 90s crates,
Mm-hmm.
80s crates,
Right.
and some of them 70s crates,
Right.
and just dig and give it to these youngsters that's just hearing this stuff like, oh man, so Kendrick Lamar didn't do that first? No.
Right. You gotta educate them. Yeah.
Who did that? No. Oh man, no. So when the school comes open to this music from all these great minds and a lot of more minds that are DJs, I respect it. And I love it. And
we definitely got to give props to DJ Cool, because I remember seeing Cool in Richmond, Virginia at Ivory's Uptown Lounge, like back in the day, and just watching him go, and then just cutting it, one more time, baby, yeah, and just cutting it back and forth, and just being amazed at that time watching him go back and forth. And he's had an influence on so many of us that are on this panel, one way or another. And Flex is back, and then he dropped out. We were talking about radio wars and influences and people. I know Cool, the people that influenced me, I mentioned it early, was Cool was an influence, Grandmaster Caz back in the day, Dougie Fresh, and Presence, being on stage, KRS-One. Those were my big influences. So Flex, you want to talk about your influences, and everyone on the panel here can talk about who motivated them to become a DJ or get into radio.
Well, I can say for me, it was a lot, because I listened to radio. I used to have to get my antenna right, and I wanted to listen to V103 in Baltimore and listen to the Newmarks, because when it was just different. You know what I mean? The way they just did music was just different, man. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And so that really influenced me. And then also my cousin used to send me tapes from he lived in New Jersey. He would send me tapes from New York radio, and it was Merlin Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Merlin Bob was like my favorite. And then I thought his name was Merlin Bob, like he was from Merlin, but no, it was Merlin like a wizard. So Merlin Bob, but those Merlin Bob tapes really helped me out. And then I wanted to try to figure out how to imitate what they were doing. And that's how I got started, because I taught myself how to DJ. So that happens with that. Now, if you want to talk about radio, that's a little bit different. I would honestly say that you, my brother, Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas, is the one person that made me want to get into radio. My first radio interview ever was at Wowie. You know what I'm saying? In Norfolk. And that was my first radio interview ever. And I didn't know what to expect. And I will tell you this. Coming into that interview, I had no respect for radio jocks. I thought y'all was, y'all some different, some BS. And y'all ain't no real DJ. You don't get in the club. You don't know what's going on. You ain't no real DJ. You're just on there playing record CDs or whatever y'all playing and blah, blah, blah. Until I went and got on your show. And he had this thing called Holler, right?
No, it wasn't. It was kind of like a bit that I did. What you remember was one of the phone callers was hollering.
Right, but let me explain it then.
Right.
So what happened is that he got everything set up, all these sound effects and all this craziness, and then what happened is that he would make it sound like a window opened up.
Right.
And then the people could holler and say what they had to say. But the thing about it is watching all the technical stuff that Lorenzo had to do to make this joint happen to sound incredible. And I was blown away.
I was like, yo, how are you doing this? And I mean, because he had like 5 different elements going at the same time. And this is time when you had to do, you're doing reel-to-reels, and you're doing parts, and you're doing everything. It was crazy. Yep. I was blown away. And then that gave me my love for being on the air and wanting to do radio. And I thank you, my brother.
Thank you,
because, man, that you showed me something that I never saw before, and I didn't respect. And I got a lot of respect, man. That's my brother, man. I really appreciate that. Because looking at everything you had to do to make that segment happen was incredible, and it was dope.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
In fact, I appreciate that, Flex, so much. And it was Wowie was one of those stations that you had to be creative. It was all about the phrases theater of the mind. You know, we all hear that, but Wowie represented that. And I mean, that's where we learned, you know, Al B. Silk. I know some of you remember Al B. Silk. There was so many great DJs, Rick Party. Stan Barrett, who was an anchor on ESPN now, he worked at Wowie. The Buddha Brothers, I know some of y'all remember DJ Law and Big B, the Buddha Brothers, and so many others. Yeah. Ademo. Oh my God. Karen Vaughn was another one. All of us came from that station. And Flex, I appreciate that so much. And that is what motivated me to bring some of that stuff and go to Baltimore, where I had to go against Conan. Conan, are you there? You able to chime in real quick? Is he listening or he's just there?
I think he's there.
Okay, that was going to be a segue to the Baltimore V103 wars. I was going to give his props because we we no longer exist after that. So if you're just checking in, we're talking about the history of DC mix shows from the club to the radio. I am your moderator, Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas. We were last talking about radio wars. Did anyone else want to say anything in reference to their memories of Mike Burke? Radio Wars.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, Radio Wars. Again, I think I quickly mentioned earlier, our program director at the time was Brute Bailey. And, you know, Brute had served in Vietnam. And his approach to the Radio Wars was exactly what you would expect a military person to exercise. Let me give you an example. He always referred to WKYS as the enemy. Any programming strategy that we had against PGC or WKYS was called a Tet Offensive. We're going to launch a Tet Offensive against the enemy. The bombs that we, right. The bombs that we're going to drop, are going to be the special versions of different songs that was created by our production director at the time, Denver Wright, DeAndre, and also Pat Garrett too. I got to give love to Pat Garrett. But Brute, his whole approach was very militaristic. You know, when you talk about Radio Wars, back then when we'd have a staff meeting, he would say, "Tell me what's your rating." Mike Burke, Bree Taylor, what's the difference between a rating and a share? Charmaine, explain to me the difference between metro, total survey area, and area of dominant influence. That was his mindset. We all had to have that kind of information because we were soldiers in his war, in his radio war against PGC and WKYS.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Hold on. Let me say this real quick, and I get out the way. I do remember this from 100. Another strong song that they can't play.
Yes.
I remember it, man. Burned in my head. Another strong song that they can't play.
Yeah, you're right.
Yo, Mike Burke.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Who did that mix of Planet Rock and Numbers that y'all used to play in rotation?
Yeah. Oh, I want to say it may have been It could have been DeAndre.
Yo, listen, I was a kid, okay? I used to wait for that to come on the radio to tape that. It was something nobody else was doing on any station. Yeah. I mean, when y'all was around, y'all was my station. I'm just gonna say that.
And we also took it to the streets. I think many of you probably remember when Brute secured Big Red. It was like a giant mobile boom box that we would have in the streets.
I remember that.
The dial portion of the boom box was the DJ. Well, that was the DJ booth, and he would actually be mixing as this boom box moved through the streets, or we would DJ at different parks, different events around town.
I remember that.
Listen, I got to prepare for the overnight show tonight. It's been fun. Thanks for taking me down memory lane. Mad love for all of you. I remember all of you when you first got on the radio, coming in from the clubs to the DC airwaves. And I just want to say much continued success to each and every one.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you joining the panel, bro.
Mike, before you go, do you have any pictures of that Big Red?
You know what? I think I do, but please. I don't have it
just whenever you can get it. I would love to have that for please.
Okay. All right. Master.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, Lonnie C, did you have something you want to add to the radio war conversation discussion?
Well, I was around when those wars were going on. I never got involved in it. I was working for Radio 1 late, and let's see. That started from 93, 94 into 95 is when I started. And a lot of those wars I witnessed, but I didn't get involved. I just sit back and because I was new to the scene at that time, so I was pretty much getting myself together. So I saw a lot of what CeeLo was describing as well. And Rico was describing. It was funny. It was funny. I remember all of those things, especially down at the MCI Center.
Yeah. And the eggs, man. The eggs were crazy, where people's stations, vans and vehicles were being egged. And I think I try not to play too much favoritism, but I had to have my brother here chime on in just a little bit. The White Chocolate, DJ Quicksilver. So I know you want to elaborate a little bit on this as well.
I'm not going to say too much about it, because all of us right now are family in a way that we were never family before. But
facts right there.
There were some nights when I got off my 9 o'clock mix when I was still doing Live Squad mixes, and it just happened to coincide with a night when Eardrum would have his record pool meetings.
That's right.
And let me tell you, when the street teams from KISS and PGC were both in the parking lot at the same time when that record pool meeting was going on, it was not a pretty sight with the trash that was being parked.
Oh my!
And I know Rico remembers that. I know CeeLo and Flex remember those.
That's where it happened at.
That's where that happened. That's why we remember it. It happened right in our parking lot, right?
Yeah. I remember one night in particular. Like I said, we finished up the Live Squad mix at 10 o'clock, and I'm loading my records into my truck coming out the back door, and everyone's screaming. There's all this screaming going outside. I remember Easy Street must have been really drunk, because he was talking his shit just because the PGC cats were up in the parking lot. But he was having fun with it. And like I said, it was all fun and games back then, but there were some good memories of the imaging of the radio war that I think the public thought was more serious than it really was. Right. Kind of like, if you look at the East Coast, West Coast hip hop battle, I think it was bigger to the media than it really was. It was blown up. I think the people that listened to both stations thought there was really some war. We had our issues, when we run into each other in the street, but, from promotion standpoints, but it was fun, and we're all family together. We all got love for each other. The DJs are a stronger community together now than we've ever been, thanks to the pandemic. So it's all fun and games, and it's great memories just to talk about it.
Right. CeeLo, did you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I was in the middle of all of it, So,
right.
I mean,
that's why I asked you, my brother.
Like nobody else. So look, I was at KYS first, and then I went to PGC with Albie D. He put me on overnights. Then I started doing 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock every day. And it got to a point where Kathy Hughes bought Radio 1, they approached me. They was like, "Yo, CeeLo, what's good, man? We trying to whatever." So I took the contract that they offered me, and I took it to LBD. LBD said, "Yo, we can't match it." I said, "All right, well, I'm gonna have to holler at you in a minute." And I went over to KYS, and when I went to KYS, it was a big thing. I mean, they did promos. I didn't come on the air for like 2 weeks. It was like a big deal, and I went over there, and that was the first time when Kathy Hughes bought. They could never beat PGC. But when I went over there, I'm not gonna say it was just because of me, but I think it was the hype behind everything that was going on. We finally beat PGC. We beat LBD at 5 o'clock. We beat we beat everybody. So, you know, I had a year contract. Year was up. Went back to PGC because Damon Williams who was at PGC at the time, Flavor 1580. He didn't want to re-sign my contract. So I went back to PGC. So anyway, I'm in the middle of these wars. It never really got in, you know, I used to get on the air and talk some trash here and there, whatever. But for real, it didn't affect me. I mean, for real.
CeeLo talk trash on the air, did your drops talk the trash?
No, CeeLo talk trash.
His drops would say everything.
Well, my drops would say everything too, but I would talk trash too.
Yes,
and, you know, it was just like, you know, at the end of the day, like, whoever's paying me, I'm gonna keep it real with you. You know what I'm saying?
Amen. Yep.
I was getting paid a pretty penny to do what I was doing. So, you know, I didn't care about that war. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't in that war. As far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But I was friends with everybody. So even if I was at KYS, I'm still cool with Plex, Rico, G Sharp, everybody. Like none of that changed ever. So, you know, it was a war, but like Quicksilver said, it was more blown up than it was more between promotions than the actual on-air personalities and the DJs and stuff. I mean, every now and again you had some on-air personalities talking trash, but it was just talk for the radio. It wasn't like when we left the radio, it was we see each other, it's on and pop.
Right.
And Lorenzo, I got one more thing I'll be real quick I want to add, but and Flex and Rico may remember this, but when Kathy Hughes first bought KISS and that whole changeover took over in '95, there was a guy from New York who did the night show on KISS by the name of the Native One. Y'all remember the NO?
Oh yeah, remember the name. Yeah, he made a sound, something like that.
He came in with the purpose. He came in. Now he was like, "Hey,
that's what it was.
I remember him, and I wasn't actually officially working at the station just yet, but I was cool with Jay Ski, and Iron was the other mix show DJ at the time. And Native One came in with the mindset, I'm going for Tigger's ass, we're going to beat that motherfucker. And he talked trash in the club. Like, he didn't do it on a friendly tip. He had that mindset of just, he wanted to talk trash to start shit. And I remember that there were some things that happened in the streets just from a verbal standpoint because of the way he talked. But other than that, everyone else was all love outside of that whole image of the radio war.
Right. G Sharp, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I got a few things because my perspective is a little different because I got to see it from 3 different angles. You know, from a mix show DJ standpoint, when we were on the air going head to head against the other mix shows, it was, from my opinion and from my perspective, it was a friendly rivalry, you know, because I respected every DJ that I was playing against, but I knew that I had to bring my best game. So for me, that battle was bringing out the best in me as a mix show DJ. But I also worked in the promotions department. So being on the street team and working in promotions and going to promotions, we had to make sure that we got there first, wherever that open spot was. We had to get there first. We had to show out first. We had to have the biggest numbers. We had to show our colors. You know what I mean? We were taking it very seriously. But then when I got promoted to become music director, I saw it from a completely different angle because then everything mattered. You know, the relationships that we had with the with the labels. For example, when we had to put together a birthday bash, how we angled ourselves to get the artists to perform at birthday bash, so that we had to make sure that KYS didn't get their music, or we had to make sure that we were the ones that were getting who we wanted, and they couldn't get them. They weren't getting the music. They weren't getting, at least that's what we were trying to do. So it was a much higher level when I was at music director. But then I realized, wait a minute, after I got fired from being music director, I was like, why am I taking this so seriously? This is not my game. I'm doing this from a level that, as far as I'm concerned, I could be replaced in a second to do this job. So I'm fighting, tooth and nail, ready to spill blood for this. And I realized, wait a minute, anybody can do this. And then when you think a couple years later, as Rico alluded to, our friend from Buffalo, who was our captain, our leader, all of a sudden he goes across the street. Yeah. Do the same thing. So that made me realize, well, as much as this war was a war, it really wasn't that serious. It really was about just doing your job and doing the best you can and making the war something to motivate you. So that's what I got from it.
Right. Well, this is the panel. Legendary DJs and personalities on it is the history of DC mix shows from the club to the radio. Got my man Ed Get Down Crosby. He's on here, and I didn't have a chance to ask you. You didn't have a chance to answer the question about your journey. What was your journey like from the club going to the radio, Mr. Get Down?
Well, it was it wasn't hard or anything. It was just growing up in a neighborhood where, everybody in the neighborhood wanted to be a DJ or be somebody that's coming out of a neighborhood. And the neighborhood that I grew up in,
let them know where it was.
Yeah. It was the west side of Chicago, Mm-hmm. So again, I'm listening. I'm so amazed at all these stories I'm hearing. I'm just forgetting I'm a part of the panel. I'm just enjoying the show here. But anyway, growing up on the west side of Chicago, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for guys like myself coming, off the west side. That was like a lower class neighborhood in Chicago. And me having the opportunity to start DJing really started with hanging out with my mom's boyfriend, DJing so he can get free drinks at the clubs, not even being old enough to be in the club at the age of 13, 14 years old, mixing music, hanging out with my mom's boyfriend, going out with him and, rocking the different clubs and lounges so he could get free drinks was the beginning of my club scene, DJing in the clubs. Now, it wasn't until I got intrigued with listening to a gentleman who influenced me to start taking a look at radio, a gentleman named Kenny Jason back here in Chicago, who was doing a mix show in 1979, I want to say, on ABC network, WDAI, which was a station that was doing the mix shows on Saturday called Action Tracks. And by me being a young man off the west side of Chicago, a lot of times due to gang violence and violence in the street, I couldn't go outside. So I would listen at the radio and listen to Kenny. And that's where, my desire or the seed got planted for me to want to become a DJ. And I used to tell folks in that community, what you doing? You gonna come outside and play? No, I gotta listen to Kenny. I'm gonna be on the radio one day. Right. And so you can imagine, because all I ever heard is, you ain't gonna never be nothing. You ain't gonna never you hear that over and over and over. So listening to him and getting inspired to want to get on the radio, I kept speaking it into existence. But
right.
I did not know the work that I was gonna have to put in. And so with him allowing me to become friends with him and him mentoring me and actually taking me under his wings and taking along, I got bit by that bug. And I'm like, wow. I thought DJing in the clubs was a great experience, but the first time I even, got opportunity to do mixes on a radio station or a college radio station, it just blew my mind at the response of me being on radio doing a DJ set, and like I said, that transition wasn't hard at all, just being dedicated and committed to your art, wanting to know that, okay, what I'm doing in the club, how do I compress what I do in the club into a DJ set and package it and make it radio friendly so that I will win the audience and not lose them because you know with radio, like you guys was talking about, you have to play so many hits and things of that nature. So
right. But what club did you go to, and what radio station? Let the audience know that you went to in the DMV area, on the DC market.
On the DC market, I had an opportunity to visit. Baltimore had a great club that had a awesome sound system. Help me out, Greg. Odell's.
Odell, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, actually, I never got a chance to DJ there, but I was a part of a house music group called Master C and J, and they had an outstanding. This is way before the Basement Boys. Teddy and them came to the forefront where they at now, but yeah, that coming to Baltimore and remember performing there and listening to that sound system, which I'm a production guy. I'm really a behind the scenes production guy. So what attracts me with a club is when they have a state of the art or just a system that is powerful but clear and clean. And that was one club that stuck to my remembrance. And I said, hey, this is what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my life. Another highlight was actually.
Let's condense it just a little bit, Ed.
Okay.
Make it a little shorter. Okay.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay, another highlight of mine in the DC area, there was another club that I was a part of performing at. I don't know if you guys knew about Tracks. Was that a Tracks club?
You remember that, right?
Yeah, so that club there, it was the sound system again, which was a Richard Long sound system. So I just love good sound systems. So I remember that era from DC going to Tracks, and the Baltimore area was Odell. So those was the two places that I visit, not knowing that years later I was gonna be on the radio in DC. That's a whole nother story. So yeah, I would have to say those was the two highlights for me.
Thank you.
So Lorenzo, let me say something about Edward, because he was a part of the Mega Mix with me, Iron, CeeLo, and Super Slice. And he's, like he said, he's from Chicago, but when Edward Get Down Crosby hit the air in DC, I mean, we got so much response from his house music tracks that he used to play, his mixes. And a lot of people, when I talk to them now, you know, they'll talk about, okay, we used to love to hear you play the house music on KYS, but they always mention Edward Get Down Crosby in the same breath. So to me, I'm just so happy that he's here on this panel, because even though he lives in Chicago, he's from Chicago, he's made a major impact in DC, and there's a lot of people in DC that loves this man and really appreciates what he contributed to the music scene in DC. So once again, my brother, thank you.
Yes, no problem. I appreciate the guys. I appreciate that. And you know, I wasn't part of none of the radio wars and nothing like that. I basically was warned against myself because we didn't have all this technology. So I had to be extra creative in my mix shows, not being there. So I was on the phone with club goers, asking them what they was hearing in the clubs in DC. And then I was on the phone every other day with 12-inch records, some record store, you know, so that was a constantly being consistent. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was actually sharpening my programming skills,
right,
to allow me to do what I do now. But you know, I was just the cement in between the bricks, because once again, when I said talked about relationships with the radio stations, my success I credit towards being having a good, healthy relationship with my music director, my program director. Then was Barbara Prieto, and music director was Greg Diggs. So I just took it as, hey, you know, as long as these guys are giving me the green light to be creative and be myself, then, you know, we'll let the chips fall where they may. But, you know, that's about it for my story.
Thank you so much, Ed.
A quick question. Ed, what nights did you go to Tracks? I did Wednesday night. I did the Wednesday. I had a resident DJ for Wednesday night at Tracks.
Do you remember this house music group, Master C and J, with Liz Torres?
Absolutely. Yeah. What's the girl? Liz Torres, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Was the first sex symbol of house music, of course.
Right.
I played that record in the clubs and on the radio.
Right.
Who had those records?
I would have to say it was either, I can't remember, child. You put me on the spot. Was it a Friday or Saturday night?
No, it was probably Wednesday. That's what I'm laughing because other nights I don't think you would have fit in with the other nights. I did the college.
Okay. Oh, you did the college? Okay. I got you.
Yeah, so that's probably where you came through.
Okay, well, I know I was performing with Liz Torres in tracks, and we did the club Odell, Baltimore. I remember flying in. I remember flying in, and the folks in both markets, in DC and Baltimore, treated us very well. So I had always had tremendous respect for DJs and artists and that whole music scene up there in the East Coast there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that goes to defending the era of the 80s when it comes to the mix shows, because everyone had opportunity to chime in about which era was best for radio. And in the 80s, there was so many house and club hits that you were able to play. It was just so much. And then, of course, hip hop wasn't getting airplay on the radio. So if you were playing on the radio or in the clubs, you were able to play so many different genres of music. You were able to play the house. You were able to play the club. You were able to play some hip hop. You were able to play the reggae. All of that in the 80s is what you were able to play on the radio, as opposed to once the 90s rolled around and deregulation came in, then you had to basically, then they divided our music, and you had some music on the urban ACs, then you had your hip hop stations. Oh, yeah, I was about to ask Charles about anybody, DJ, I'm just curious. Oh, there you go, Charles. I'm just curious, it may not have anything to do with this story, but do with the theme, but how different do you have to mix? Is there a difference in the way you have to mix on, say, a New York City radio station compared to a DC radio station? What's the differences? And elaborate on the differences.
I do exactly the same thing. Like DC prepared me for New York.
Y'all
talking about radio wars? How about DJ wars? You not from here wars? You not from New York wars? I had to deal with that because I was the mix show director at BLS.
Right.
So you imagine? So I did what I did in DC.
Grandmaster Flash on, right?
Yeah. What I did was I put everybody in New York on Grandmaster Flash, DJ Premier, Jazzy Joyce, because I had to take the heat off the team. That when I came in to manage a team, they were like talking crazy about New York DJs. I'm like, yo, we got to get New York DJs on here, or we're going to get murdered in the streets. Right. So I put Grandmaster Flash on and Premiere, and we ruled the airways. But that came from, I got on New York radio because Jerry Clifton was supposed to get Hot 97 when Joel Sakowitz left. Because remember, Jerry Clifton was a consultant at PGC, but when CBS bought the station,
with Steve Smith as well, too, right? Steve Smith as well?
And Steve Smith was with Power 106.
That's right, okay. Right.
Jerry mentored him. So imagine him coming to PGC and taking credit for what Jerry did, and then he gets Hot 97. So I got this call. I thought it was a joke because I didn't believe Jerry. I never spoke to Jerry Clifton directly, like one-on-one. He called me at Pendulum Records. He was like, "Hey, Charles, you want to mix?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, where am I mixing? DC?" He goes, "No, New York." I said, "When do I start?" He said, "Oh, they're waiting for you now. Just go talk to Quincy McCoy." So I went to Quincy, and next thing you know, I'm on BLF. And then they made me the mix show director. It was crazy. So I was able to put a team together. And I put, Flash on Premiere, and then I was working with Jonathan Donker, Silver D, Tony Vaughn. But we opened it up when Premiere went on tour with Gangstar. And I put every top DJ in New York that wasn't on the radio. And that caused our ratings to go to the roof. But then the whole rap thing came down where Calvin Butch was fighting about gangster rap and rap lyrics. BLS pulled all the rap music. I'm like, this happened to me before in DC when they pulled the rap music. So I'm just like, whoa. So, it was crazy times. But yeah, DC prepared me for New York. I still rep DC and Baltimore because I'm one of those Odell's kids too. I used to go in Odell's with the fake ID, and Wayne Davis inspired me to want to be a DJ because I used to watch him blend for hours. And like Ed said, that sound system, that Richard Long system, that was like the club music DJ Chitlin circuit. They all played. Larry LeVan would come down to Baltimore to play at Odell's because every city that had a Richard Long system, that was like having a CDJ.
Yes.
Larry, you had DC had The Clubhouse. I think Philly had the Catacombs. Zanzibar was in New York. Studio 54. Bunch of clubs in New York. The Garage, of course. And I think Trax had a partial system too. But DJs played that whole circuit. That sound system was crazy. I got a chance to play at Odell's at a Christmas party in '90 when it was the second time that they got shut down and they opened back up. I played in '90, so I got to experience turntables on rubber bands. And the DJ console mounted all the way down into the floor, the cement column that went all the way up, and then Odell's had like a one of those spiral staircase catacombs up into the ceiling. You had to look down on the crowd. But yeah, that club launched a lot of careers. Definitely the Basin Boys, Ultra Nate. I used to see her sitting on the speakers when I would come in there. But Wayne Davis influenced me, and Grandmaster Flash, what he did on the record, what was that record? It was like a mega mix that he did for Sugar Hill Records.
Wheels of Steel. Wheels of Steel.
Wheels of Steel. Yep.
Wheels of Steel.
And it's funny, I live across the street now from Leland Robinson, which is crazy. But so those are my influences. But yeah, man, it was crazy times. But I love the '80s, and I love this panel is amazing. Great genius for this, bro.
Hey Rico, when I posed that question to Charles about mixing differently, I got a reaction from you. So is there something that you wanted to add to that?
Hey,
or
I'm gonna say this: when it comes down to New York and DC, here's the thing. And one of my DJs, I would say, that stepped on the back of my neck, that wasn't from DC, that was from New York, Kid Capri. I still love this dude. And I get what Charles is saying, but when I say this, if you don't mix different in DC than you do in New York, you're gonna lose the people in DC.
That's right.
If you don't mix different from New York to DC, you're gonna lose.
And vice versa.
Like for New York, I'm more house music, so that's different. Now hip hop and R&B, that's different. You know, in with hip hop and R&B, and in New York, you gotta play a record for like a minute and a half. And DC, you might let it rock a little longer, but in New York, everyone like Kid Capri style.
And again, that goes with when we talk about certain music, like, and this is no disrespect to a New York DJ, because I love the DJs in New York, like Capri, like Red Alert, all up. But see, here's the thing: when you come to DC, and you come to DC and you play go-go, the butt is not the only go-go song.
No.
The only go-go song. Open night scenario ain't the only go-go song.
Let me chime in on that, Rico, because I'm more DC than New York. You know, I've been up here 30 years. I'm more of a DC Baltimore cat than a New York cat to a certain extent. And I remember the Fresh Fest in 1984 when the go-go bands through Daryl Brooks opened for the New York rappers, and they could not. They would open up. Rare Essence would come on, Trouble Funk would come on, and then the New York guys would come on with a turntable, microphone, and a reel-to-reel. Lost the crowd. But they had to pretty much partner with the DC go-go group, like Dougie Fresh and Rare Essence. They did a whole album together.
Now wait a minute, I'm about to get there. Now let me.
And then you got Curtis Blow. His second album was a Rare Essence soundtrack.
No sir.
All the time was straight go. Slave to the Rhythm, Grace Jones. That's Rare Essence.
Oh, that's Champion.
So there you go.
So look, let me go here. So
go ahead.
Down to it. If you go to New York and you're from DC and you don't know how the hip hop music intertwines in New York, you're gonna stink up the spot.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you.
I've been in, Italy. Had a show in London. You gotta do your research. You gotta study. And I remember with Funkmaster Flex, every city he would go in, he would have pretty much a blueprint of how to put it together. Because you have to do your research. You can't go into a place where you've never been and not know the crowd. And try
Right. I know I know I'm probably dating myself right now, but in 1980, I was working at Tiffany's, and this brother came up to me and asked me if I wanted to do a guest spot at Studio 54. And I thought it was a joke, but it was real. So I ended up going in 1980 DJing in Studio 54. Wow. And I had to get up there and on the flyer, I still have the flyer and I still can't believe this. On the flyer, it has guest DJ Greg from DC. And so it's like, I'm from DC going to New York in Studio 54 representing DC. And it was really interesting because I knew my style was sort of like a DJ from New York, especially when I played at Tiffany's. And when I got to Studio 54, man, that was the highlight of my DJ career, because not to pat myself on the back, but I turned that place out. But I was representing Washington, D.C., playing in New York City. And so it's to me, it's just like a thing where you have to know, like Charles was saying, you have to know who you're playing for and know who your audience is. And fortunately for me, I was already playing that style at Tiffany's, so I knew what to play when I got up there.
Right.
So I want to chime in for a second, because I know the topic or the title of this discussion is From the Club to the Radio.
Correct.
To kind of touch on Rico's point, Charles' point, and even what Greg just said, my story was a little bit the opposite, and I had to unlearn what I knew to play where I was playing. So when I started in radio in DC, I wasn't playing in the clubs anywhere here. Right. So I had no idea what, at least from a DJ standpoint, what a club DJ should be playing. So when I started on the mix shows in DC, I was basically playing based on what I thought a good flow would be, and that was it. And then from playing on the radio in DC, that's when I started to get opportunities to play in the clubs in DC.
Right.
And I would, representing PGC, for example, I would get to play in spots like Triples or Rhythms or Utopia. And the first few times I did it, I bombed. I mean, I bombed horribly, because I was trying to take what I knew doing on the radio to the club. And the clubs in DC, the vibe was totally different from what I thought. So fast forwarding now from when I moved from DC to New York. And, I've been playing in clubs in DC for years. So I thought, I knew what I was doing. So when I moved to New York, thinking that I had my club legs strong, and I got a couple of gigs in places like Limelight. And the first couple of times, I bombed again. I played in clubs in Brooklyn. I bombed again, because I really didn't understand what it took. So just like Charles said, you got to do your research to really understand what was going on. Even though every single one of us here could rock a party any and everywhere, we got to be able to do our research first. I just learned the hard way that I needed to do it before I played in those spots.
Can I chime in real quick? Can I chime in?
Yes.
The first time I played in New York was on Hot 97 at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And I had been DJing in DC majority of my life. Right. And when I went to Hot 97, I think they thought I was gonna come in there and play go-go, right? But I pretty much wanted to be a DJ, listening to DJs like Marley Marl, Red Alert. My cousins were sending me tapes, so I knew that I wasn't gonna go up in here and play no go-go. You know what I'm saying? Like the first record I played was Wu-Tang, It's Yours. And I had it from there. You know what I'm saying? Like it blew the spot up. Then we went to the Tunnel after that, and they let me play at the Tunnel. And I murdered that. I just knew I couldn't go playing in New York like I played in DC. Exactly. And vice versa. I can't play in DC like I play in New York. Like when I go play in DC, I can go to the deep in Bryan Manor and rock that spot. You feel what I'm saying? Like I've done it several times. And not say anything on the mic. It's just strictly record music. You know what I'm saying? Which is unheard of in the cabaret scene. Everybody's talking on the mic, except for me. Right. And I will rock the spot without saying a word. It's just about knowing your room, knowing the audience. So, I kind of went to New York knowing what to do.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting, and that kind of brings me to a question that I think all of y'all have to deal with now, because we're talking about mixing and DJing in different markets, and of course now the technology is improved, and so a lot of these new upcoming DJs have Serato, and it makes it much easier to DJ, and then everyone sees the glamour of it, and we all have our certain rates that we charge for individual parties. And I kind of want to get this in because we got about 11 more minutes before we wrap this thing up. But how do you feel, fellas, about the DJs or up and coming DJs, the new ones that are basically, I guess we can label them as the $100 DJ or the $200 DJ, the one that comes in and just undercuts whatever your price is. Oh, I see Rico hand up. And CeeLo, I know you probably want to chime on this. Fellas, elaborate. I mean, because we've all worked so hard on building our brands, and these new cats are coming in. $5, $50 DJs. Rico, go.
Get the hell out the way. You got a laptop with 200 downloads in it, don't make you a DJ. Just because you got a brand new rain setup or whatever, don't make you a DJ. Just because someone told you they want you to come and play, oh yeah, you sound all right. Nah, don't make it. If you do not understand how people come in, once they hit the floor, if you don't control the floor, if you don't make more than 8 women dance and it's 75 women in the party, you are not a damn DJ. If you don't have women sweating, coming up out their shoes, busting their stockings, if you are not sitting up and should I say, and minister and knowing your worth, let me say that again, knowing your worth, you are in the way. I don't care.
Preach, Rico, preach.
Oh, preach, Pastor. Oh, preach, Pastor.
And all you getting is $150. What the fuck are you doing?
Oh, preach, Pastor.
I mean, no way in 3 parts of the word is that cool. Man, when it comes down to it, dog, if you are sitting up and you are watching any of the DJs that's on Twitch now doing it live, guess what? We do it for the people. We do it for the music. We do it for the concept. We do it for the love. We do it for the energy that we entrust in the people that come in a damn chat room, for the people that's walked in the building to the parties that we done, to the radio that people turn the knobs on to. So if you sit up and you accepting $150 and you just DJ for 7 hours, I'm getting the fuck out the bar.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what? To further that point,
Mic drop.
Mic drop. I blame the clients. I've had people call me talking about, well, Mike at the post office, he say he'll do it for $300. I said, why are you calling me?
Exactly.
I'm not mad at the DJ because someone had to hire them and stuff that they were qualified enough to do what they got to do. But why y'all call these guys? And then as soon as they mess up, I don't want to call
Scotty, you want to say something, Scotty?
Yeah, but it's like code.
My number. Don't ever call me.
Nah,
Scotty, go ahead. Back up for the mic, Scotty. You muffled just a little bit. Okay.
Better.
Yes, good, excellent.
Yeah. So it's like code, I can't blame the client because the client gonna go for the lowest price regardless. It's called code of ethics. It's called respecting your craft. It's called respect. It's called respecting the game. It ain't
Okay, go ahead, Rico.
Some of them haven't been in the game long enough to know what the game is.
Let me say this.
Whose fault is that?
Let me say this.
Go ahead, CeeLo.
Go ahead.
Undercutting has been going on since the beginning of time. This is nothing new. This is not a new epidemic. You know what I'm saying? So ever since I've been in the game, I'm not even gonna name some DJs, but yeah, I was getting undercut. Yep. So it's you have to stick to your guns, and these new DJs coming out, you can't really blame them because they walked into this environment. Yep. It's way worse. It's way worse than what it was when I was in the game. The game has changed. There are no major clubs, no big clubs. I can speak for DC. There are no big clubs anymore. They're only lounges. So how many people can you fit in a lounge?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, the promoter's gonna pay the less price to a DJ, and the DJ, and you get what you pay for, which is why there are no more big clubs, and we are in the lounge stage now. It's a trickle down. It's a trickle down effect for everybody.
That's why before I left DC, I became the promoter. I started booking my own parties.
There you go, Charles.
I did tracks, I did cities.
There you go.
I'm the promoter. I'm getting the door. Y'all get the bar because I'm making more money than y'all booking me to use my name to get money. So you got to become the promoter. You got to learn promotion.
Right. And that's, I'm gonna come to you in a second, G Sharp, but that's what I did, you know. And if any of y'all heard about the CIAA, we got the biggest part, we got the #1 day party on Friday. So I became the promoter. Forget about the promoter hiring me. I got my own database. I got my own Rolodex, you know.
And nobody knows who the promoter is. They know you. They're not the promoter. So you might as well be the promoter.
G Sharp, you want to say something? I see your hand up. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So I think there's really two things we have to realize. Everyone in here is a master at our craft because we've done this for more than 10,000 hours. Yeah. When you have 10,000 hours, you're a master at what you do, right?
Right.
We have to let people know what our value is. That's the first thing, right? The second thing is if they don't even understand how to value us, then they don't deserve us. We don't even need to have a conversation. So we should, none of us in this room, and a lot of the people that we know that are at our level, we don't even need to have the conversation with the $200 promoter or the $150 or give you a bar tab. We're not at that level. If they don't understand our value, then it doesn't even matter. Right now, I am fortunate enough, even though I'm playing in terms of volume in less venues and places, I am playing the best way that I know how, and I'm having the most fun doing it because with my live streams, I'm playing whatever I want. When people hire me, they understand why they're hiring me and they understand my value. So whether it's once a month, whether it's once a year, whether it's every 2 years, that event, I'm getting my value. And that's all that matters to me at this point.
And that brings me to my final question. I'm glad you mentioned it, G Sharp, because I wanted to ask the panel, and we got a few more minutes, but how has internet streaming and social media impacted your career, your livelihood, especially with dealing with COVID? And really the first time we really mentioned COVID over the past 2 years. And this is just anyone on the forum that wants to, on the panel that wants to address this question. How has digital streaming impacted your career?
Well, I lost a lot of gigs and I was like, stressing. So I took a job working at Nordstrom selling men's suits because clothing is my other passion. I love fashion. I love style, like dressing up. So I did that. But while I was doing that, Vivian Scott Chu, who's married to Ray Chu, she used to be the head of Epic Records, Sony 550. She does a lot of events. Ray Chu does, the music directors for basically all the events on TV that involve like award shows, whatever. She called me up one day and she said, look, we're in a pandemic. I want to hire you to do Zoom. We'll pay you with tips. So I'm like, Vivian's my girl. I would do it for her for nothing. So I set up my whole Zoom situation with Ethernet instead of wireless. Got all this equipment, mics, everything. So I was like, I'm going to do this. And the people she had on the call was like, George Clinton, Kathy Sledge, CeCe Peniston, Martin Luther King's daughter, Louis Martinet, producer. It's like it was all-star cast, and they was like sending me $50, $20, $100, and I was only on for an hour. So I did this for like almost 2 months every week, and I was like, okay, this is the new gig. An hour, and you can make up to like $500-$600 on tips. Changed my life. So I'm like, I'm in. And then this high school, like one of those 90201 high-end high school, like Calhoun, they hired me. They said, look, we want you to do a high school party with your race. I said, what's your budget? They're like, well, we don't have a big budget. It's only going to be an hour. We can pay you $600. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I did it. I said, well, you guys send me a playlist. So they sent me a playlist because, all the parents were concerned of rap music and lyrics and Cardi B this and Jenny Echo that. So I'm like, just send me what you want me to play. I'll add some more songs to it and boom. So I did it, got the 600. They sent me a tip for another 200. I'm like, whoa, this is the new business. 40 an hour for like 800. Okay, I'm right. So I'll start my Twitch thing. And I also did a demo for Sirius XM last week, and they played it like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So I'm working out a deal with them to be on there, and they like what I was doing on BLS. So it's like I'm really feeling this whole digital world. But
you want to chime in on
this panel is an adapter. We can adapt to any situation.
That's right. Gotti, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna piggyback on what he was saying. And I'm sure Rico, Quick, a lot of us that are still streaming. I think we feel like it's changed, but it's also I can speak for myself. It's changed my mentality. Mm-hmm. I don't really care about a regular club gig anymore, to be quite honest. Right. It's not. We just had a conversation about the undercutting and the financial element of it, but also, I mean, how many songs can you play at some of these regular clubs nowadays? How much music can you really play? Yeah. You know, at some of these parties. I'm talking about the mainstream ones. I ain't talking about like the cabarets and the more authentic parties. I'm talking about the mainstream parties that everybody goes to. It's like, how much music can you really play? So unless it's a certain type of event, and I'm sure Quick can attest to this as well, it's not worth it. You're what you're gonna get paid $150, $200, and then you're gonna be pissed off because somebody gonna be asking you to play Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, but it's a 90s party, so it's just kind of like, all right. So live streaming gives you that opportunity to get in front of people that you may never meet a day in your life, or they might book you. I have done so many private events since this pandemic has started that I could never imagine. Yeah, we all lost money last year, but residuals, with the residual in which we make up for it as long as we apply and get into the times. So I like to liken myself to like a bridge between the old generation and the new generation, because I am digital, but I also learned from every last one of you guys on here.
Right.
So I
take Quick, you want to chime in? Go ahead. Quick.
I kind of want to go back to what Rico said a few minutes ago. From the idea of undercutting to streaming going on right now. Those of us that in the DC market and that were heavily still playing in the clubs right before the pandemic started, everything got shut down. We know that. We all were out of work for, March 14th, 2020 is ingrained in my head forever because that was the last Saturday. Then boom, everything was shut down. Yep. I was doing 4 nights a week still at almost 50 years old, blessed, very blessed. Then we had to stream. The thing about streaming, people forget about 2 things. Not only did we get to do what we wanted to do because we love it for the music, we love it for the culture, and we love it for the people, we had to take money we didn't have because we weren't working to invest into doing those streams. The technologies, the cameras, everything it takes to make that stream happen, okay? Yep. Now, flash forward to late June of this year. DC got the okay to open up 100%. You know who the first DJs in the clubs were? The very ones that Rico was talking about who were doing the undercutting, because they were the first ones waiting for the chance to get back to the club. And you know who was still sitting home? The guys who knew their value, like Charles said. I just did my first DC club gig that's going to be regular again this past Thursday. And in early September, I got flown to Buffalo, New York to do a party for the Bills for NFL kickoff weekend. Both of those events were from a promoter who knows DJ's value. I didn't take the first thing that came to me because the streaming situation got us our brand back out there. It got us our network back out there. Yes. And I decided that, you know what? I will pick and choose what I want to do. Like G Sharp said, for my value as opposed to just rushing into stuff because I'm so desperate to work. The streaming game really changed all of our brands when you think about it. And look at my brother CeeLo. I love my brother CeeLo to death. He wasn't one of the first ones to jump on streaming, but he's streaming regularly now because, again, he knows his worth and he set it up to where he wanted to do it his way and his brand. Okay? And that's what all of us on this panel, we have all done things in the city from the radio to the club scene, and this streaming thing has made it about our brand and our value again. And I appreciate all the input that you have to say about it because we still control what we want to do even though we're the older generation.
Yeah, one other thing about promoters and clients, when you take it, if you're a value DJ, if you're an experienced DJ and you lower your rate, let's say you lower your rate and you do a $200 gig, all those promoters and all those clients will tell everybody they got you for $200. Guess what? That's your new rate. That's your new rate. Now you're a $200 DJ.
It's been like that, Charles.
Yep.
You're right. It's been like that too, Charles.
So
you cannot lower your rate. You got to stick to your guns.
You have to.
If you lower your rate, everybody talk to everybody. They all gonna know. Yep. You know, that's why they hated me so bad because my rate stayed the same. I don't care.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean?
Rate and your reputation.
Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Lorenzo.
Yes.
This whole undercutting thing is nothing new. I remember when the bands had the same argument about being undercutted by the DJs. You know, I mean,
I'm still dealing with that New York. You know what's crazy? I tell the client, like, look, they're gonna play the 6 songs they rehearsed for 3 weeks. I'm gonna give you 400 songs.
I got you. But that was the argument, you know, like when the bands were being
still
replaced.
Going on. That
but I'm talking about when it first started happening.
So what I did, I started working with the bands and said, look, you know, you tell me what record your last song, I'll blend into what you're playing and mix in, and then when I'm playing, you want to cut in, you just start matching the drums to what I'm doing, and I'll fade out, and then you're in. Yeah. So that's been working really well, working with the band. Yeah. That's amazing.
And I'm experiencing it also like in the photography industry. I mean, like everybody who has a camera now consider themselves a photographer. You know,
right.
I mean, like I try to tell the young ones, don't go out shooting anybody's wedding, you know, as your first gig. You know, that's the last thing you want to do. Don't pass out business cards before you learn your craft. You know.
So the name of the panel is the history of DC mix shows from the club to the radio, and it has been a great conversation, a great panel. I want to thank everyone for participating, listening, watching on YouTube. The digital aspect of it is really so crucial. What we're doing right now on Zoom is basically the future. This is where it's going. So it's kind of like, you know, from the club to the radio to digital streaming. I, you know, was at WEDR for 11 years. I was there and got into arguments with corporate, arguing with corporate about the direction of the radio station and a new station coming on, and knowing that there's a void. And those of you that are in the DC market can listen to DC radio and know there's not a radio station that's targeting us. You got KYS 1224. You got HUR, MMJ, Solid Gold. HUR has now become a little bit younger, but they're still not vibing directly with us. So same problem that I was having here in Miami, where I wanted to create a station that filled the void, and that's what 100 Hip Hop and R&B FM does. It fills a void in digitally streaming, and we are doing extremely well. And to all the DJs that are on this panel right now, you are welcome to be a part. Super Scotty is on, I don't know, Scotty's on 6 days a week. Quicksilver's on 6 days a week as well. They're my brothers, they're on the station, and you are on. I'm open arms if you want to be a part of it. The more, the merrier. And because if you're a part of it, you're marketing, you're promoting it, and we can all eat at the same time. So I just wanted to put that out there before we signed off. Any comments from the panelists before we go? Anything anyone want to say?
Well, Lorenzo, I would like to just have Edward get down Crosby to talk about his radio station, the Praise Cafe. I just want him to be able to have.
That's right.
Well, we are gearing up for our 15-year anniversary.
15 years, Ed?
15 years.
Wow.
They said it wouldn't work in gospel. You can't you can't have a mix show in the gospel industry, and we are 15 years old. Praise Cafe. I'm sitting here in the studio right now. I'm just enjoying everything. I invite you guys to stream with me each and every Sunday on gospel1570.com. And also, I would like for Greg and Brother Glover to think about, you know, I know we're in the streaming and digital age, but think about taking this panel right here, each and every DJ, and let's go grab a sponsor and bring this to the public live, where they have to come to a venue, and that'll make all the undercutting or the financial loss that we have all experienced go away very quickly. So I think what you have here is a real jewel, a real ticket. I know that we can do some extraordinary things with this lineup at a live venue. So I don't know if it's going to be DC or Baltimore. I leave that up to you guys, but don't let this vision go. Bring it to the public, bring it real, you know, and yes, the whole digital thing can be added. What you got here, let it grow into something that will blow all of our mind, you know. So whether you call it the Lollapalooza of DC or whatever you want to call it. But do something with this group. Do something with this group, and then that way, like DJ Rico say, people will see the difference between, the veterans and the new cats, and we won't have to negative sell anything. We can let all of our gifts and talents speak for themselves. Let's come. Let's make it real. Let's take this venue to the public and let the chips fall where they may. God bless you all. Thank you for inviting me. And be sure to tune in all month. We're going to be celebrating the 15-year anniversary of the Praise Cafe, where we take the fear out of advertisement. So guys, thank you for having me, and I hope to be a part of your next up and coming event.
I did all that fussing and Crosby jumps on and said, God bless you. I didn't know he was working at the gospel station.
I know, right?
Now, wait a minute. Now, I'm not here to condemn nobody.
No, wait a minute.
Just praise him. Just praise him.
Peter had an issue too. He was Peter was kind of rough too. But no condemnation. I definitely understand. And you said that all in love. But I say this. Hey, let these young laptops, let them do whatever they want to do. But if we take this venue live to the public,
there you go.
I guarantee you, we're looking at a 3-day outdoor fest right here. We're looking at a 3-day outdoor. At $100 ticket, we ain't gonna worry about nobody. And listen, it'll make up for all the loss. Trust me. So let's all let the seed grow, guys, and let's no undercover competition, no hidden motive, no hidden agenda. Let's just let the vision take its place and pull in the resources, and I guarantee you we'll all be some happy campers.
I agree.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Well said.
Well, as we wrap that up, I'm going to bring out the man that's responsible for putting this thing together. I'm going to close it out like Def Comedy Jam, introducing Mr. Greg Diggs. Greg, any final comments? And you can just say God bless and good night.
Well, I do want to, first of all, I want to thank you, Lorenzo, because I think you did a fantastic job, man.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
Really, you appreciate it.
Appreciate
Also,
it.
my brother
Did a great job.
Super Scotty, I worked with him in World Space. Whenever I had any kind of production I needed done, I always went to Scotty. So thank you, Scotty, for being a part of this. And of course, Grover Massenberg, I couldn't possibly do this without you, brother. But I just want to thank every single person on this panel. You know how much respect I have for everybody up here. I mean, all of you guys, man. I mean, I really, really appreciate you being on this panel and all the things that you brought to the table tonight. And I just want people to realize that Washington, D.C. is the city that has some amazing DJs and amazing history. And that's what we tried to document tonight. And I want to thank every single person that's watching, and especially these brothers on the panel tonight for making that happen for us. So thank you.
And I just want to say,
let me real quick, because I know we're short of time. This is Lonnie C again. I want to also thank you, Greg, because we talk a lot here and there from time to time, and when you first brought this up, I thought about it, and I thought it was a great idea too. But Pat came here so fast, I didn't have time to prepare like I wanted to. Because I'm not really a talker in this sense. You know that. I think Rico spoke about that earlier, because I let my music talk for me. Exactly. That's just me. Exactly. That's what I do. Yep. And that's what got me to where I am today, letting my music. The late great Sonny Taylor from Radio 1, he said music was the start. I don't know if you guys remember Sonny Taylor, who used to work for Radio 1.
Yeah. We remember the phrase for sure.
Right. Absolutely.
Jay Stevens stole that, didn't he?
That's right. So I want to thank each and every one of you guys as well, because I'm fans of each and every one of you as well. And I just want to say God bless each and every one of you. And I look forward to working with you in the near future.
All right. It is the history of DC mix shows from the club to the radio. I am your moderator, Lorenzo Ice T. Thomas, the Super Funk Regulator CeeLo. Thank you so much, my brother, for joining us. Also, DJ Dirty Rico. Say that again, CeeLo.
I said it was good to see you as well. Good
to see you too, man. I mean, and my first live broadcast in Washington, D.C. was with the funk regulator CeeLo at the Classics. Yeah,
man, that was the spot, bro.
Okay, Lonnie.
Also, thank you, Dirty DJ Rico. You can hear him with Donnie Simpson. He's streaming on IG. That's right, Rico. Let him know. Let him know.
On Twitch, The Noisemaker Nation. And if you don't know about any of these DJs on this panel, do your homework before you pick up a set of headphones.
No doubt. Also to my man, Big Brother Conan, he's still on here. And of course, you can hear him on in Baltimore. And as I said before, we go back like 8 tracks. Also, Ed, Get Down Crosby, or I should say Edward. Man, we rock together a little bit too and be more, my boy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You locked the they cutting us off.
Man, cut us off, didn't
No, not yet.
Yeah, he froze. He froze.
I think Lorenzo's froze.
He got excited.
Lorenzo froze.
What you do, Rick? What you do to the box, Rico?
I do nothing. I do nothing.
All right. But anyway, let me just say I want to thank everybody for joining us again for our second series here. It's been great working with everybody, and we have a couple other things planned. But like I said, this has been great working with everybody. This has been a great series.
Great working with you too.
All right.
Thanks, Greg. We appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Guys, thank you.
Hey, Grover, Greg, and can I ask you guys, since all of us are here,
my Wi-Fi went out.
There you go. Oh, there you go. What's
hear
up,
me?
brother?
My Wi-Fi dropped. Sorry, y'all.
Real quick, go ahead, G.
If any of us are still doing shows, whether we're on the radio or doing streams, can each of us kind of just give where we're playing, what we're playing, and whether it's a live stream, whether it's on FM radio or whatever, so at least the folks that are watching can kind of connect with us again?
Go ahead, man.
Well, I guess I'll start. Shameless plug, right? So, starting back on October 16th, I'm taking a couple weeks off because I'm moving, but I have 2 shows on the weekend. Saturdays, from 3 o'clock until about 5, I have a house show called House of My House. And then on Sundays, every Sunday, I do it on 7 o'clock. Both are happening on Mixcloud and Twitch. Mixcloud is G#21, Twitch, well, GEESHARP21, but Mixcloud is where you'll find me. House of My House, Saturdays at 3, Soaking in the Sunset, 7 o'clock on Sundays.
All right.
Anybody else?
Magic 102.3, 92.7, Donnie Simpson Show, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Traffic Jam Relief, Big Jagger, VJ to midday, Thursday and Friday, Noisemaker Nation Fridays every Friday. Catch me on Twitch, The Noisemaker Nation, on IG, DJ Rico the Noisemaker.
All right, yesterday, yours truly, Jeffrey C. right here. I play on handsonradio.fm every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Also, Pressure Radio from out of London. That is also Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. House music all the time.
All right.
DJ Lonnie C, Saturdays on the Mr. C show. Check me out. Also, we'll be streaming on Twitch soon. Lonnie C's Old School House Party. Stay tuned.
CeeLo, you can catch me every day at noon on Twitch at The Real DJ CeeLo. I'm playing all classics, every genre. I don't hold back. It might be house, it might be hip hop, it might be R&B classics, but we're gonna play the classics. We pay homage to the foundation.
And he talks on the microphone.
Yeah.
I talk a little bit.
He does. You can check me Wednesdays and Saturdays on Twitch and Mixcloud doing my old school mixes. Wednesdays 5 o'clock to whenever. Saturdays 4 o'clock to whenever. As Scotty knows, until I pass out drunk, I'm done. And then of course on Lorenzo's show, 100 Hip Hop and R&B.fm, Monday through Thursday at 9 o'clock and Saturdays at 9 o'clock with my brother. And then of course in DC, I got my Saturday and Sunday day party in the next couple weeks, finally coming back, and things are getting back to normal. And the promoters are finally paying money again. So getting back to normal.
Good.
All right. Super Scotty, the DJ. Catch me Monday through Friday, on 100hiphopandrb.fm. How to listen? All you got to do is pick up your Amazon Fire Stick and say, Alexa, launch 100 Hip Hop and R&B. Monday through Friday, the Midday Madness Mix, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. with K Fox. And then Saturday, the day party on 100hiphopandrb.fm. Same deal, same way to listen. Every Friday, the mix at 6, live on Twitch and Mixcloud. And Saturday nights, Trappin' R&B with me, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Trappin' R&B is my effort to bridge the gap between R&B soul, hip hop, but it's all love. It's all a story. It's a vibe. So check me out at Super Scotty the DJ on all social media platforms. And shout out to all the DJs that's watching on YouTube too. I see y'all. Alizé, DJ Book, who else? Malik the Freak, aka D Masters. Who else? Missing somebody.
Eardrum. Oh, snap.
Also,
man.
Oh, what's up?
Shout out to Junior Salinas also, because he was a Latin hip hop DJ, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned his name because he used to do a Latin hip hop mix. So shout out to Junior Salinas.
I'm becoming DJ on the Twitch, DJ Cosmo T. That's my little brother. He's been kind of like, should I say, mastering the game by watching and listening to a whole lot of us. So big up to my little brother, DJ Cosmo T. Who's not?
Okay. Okay, I'll say Sir Charles Dixon. You can catch me on African Crest Radio out of South Africa. It also airs in Rwanda and Uganda on Sundays at 12 p.m. and on Saturdays, Soul City the Beat in Torino, Italy. It's from 7 p.m. their time, so I guess that's around 1 p.m. our time. And stay tuned for details on Sirius XM Radio Studio 54 Radio. I don't have a date yet, but they liked my debut, so they're going to give me some times, and I'm going to have to talk, so that's going to be interesting. So check me out.
All right. Well, since everybody's promoting stuff, I guess I might as well promote my book, The Musical DNA of
There you go.
This is the 5th anniversary.
We're going to sign my book, man. We're going to sign my book, man. I want you to sign my book, bro. Do I mail it to you and you sign it and send it back?
That's beautiful.
We'll talk about it. But the other thing I do want to talk about, I did write a screenplay to a movie screenplay called Anacostia. And so just be on the lookout for that. It's based in Southeast Washington, D.C. And my elevator pitch is Boys in the Hood meets Get Out. So be on the lookout for that.
I like that.
Anacostia.
Pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate.
Right from there.
But once again, Lorenzo, I just want to thank you, man, for doing a fantastic job for putting this thing together, man. I really do appreciate it. You and Scotty, I really appreciate both of you guys for helping us. And like I said, everybody on this panel, Rico, Jeffrey, Charles, DJ Quicksilver, CeeLo, Edward, everybody, Lonnie, all of you guys, man, I really do appreciate you being a part of this and being a part of this and documenting this history, because that's what we're trying to do tonight is document this history, and you guys are definitely a part of that. Right. So thank you, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, and to add to that, I just want to invite everybody on my Facebook page, which is dedicated to the history of DC music and entertainment. It's called DC Funk and Harmony. It's a private page, but just ask to join. DC Funk and Harmony.
DC Funk and Harmony.
Okay, so we our mission is pretty much the history of DC music.
Cool. All right. Well, I would like to say God bless to everyone and good night.
All right.
All right, brothers.
Good night, everybody.
All right, peace.
All right,
All right.
Peace out. Peace and love.
Good night. Good night.
All right.
All right. Steve-O, I like your tracks, bro. The house tracks. I love them.